Rapid Response Team Alpha, Security Chief Blanchard. I'll copy. Barricade at the command center.
Transit, regarding why is Black Ops Zombies' worst map ever made? But why? How can a map with so many innovative features fall so flat? And why is Transit causing controversy again, almost 12 years later? Today, we uncover all of this and break down Transit like you've never seen before. So grab your bus ticket as it's time to get going. Some of the footage in this video is from Internet Archives. The links will be found down below. Produced by Activision and developed by Treyarch with director Jimmy Zielinski, Transit was a nightmare from the beginning. Transit was released as the launch map of Black Ops 2 on November 12, 2012, for the Xbox 360, PS3, and the Wii U. You start in a tiny bus stop with blue-eyed zombies one requiring power, the other pointless. Grab the parts from the turbine, and voila, the power door is now open. You exit, and Transit is unveiled. Long-time zombies is unveiled.
Keep pushing. We need to find out what caused all this, even if it turns out it was us.
The jobs report was released this Friday morning, and it smashed expectations. However, it's hurting the stock markets. Apparently, the results were just too good. So I'm going to explain to you what is going on. So, in the month of December, 256,000 jobs were added, and the unemployment rate decreased to 4.1%. So this crushed expectations. Analysts were expecting to be around 150,000 jobs added. So take a look at this. This is the number of jobs added each month over the past 2 years. So as you can see, this was a solid month. And here's the trend of the unemployment rate. So according to the report, the labor market is solid. So that begs the question, why is the stock market reacting so negatively to this rate? It's because if the labor market is so strong, then that means that the Federal Reserve is not going to cut interest rates at their next meeting or maybe even soon, which is not good for stocks. So listen, I'm reporting this in the morning and markets are down, but of course we'll see where this closes at the end of the day. Now, I want to show you the market expectations of what the Federal Reserve is going to do about interest rates at their next meeting, which takes place on January 29th. So there was a 93.1% chance that the Federal Reserve does not cut interest rates at that meeting. So those were the odds as of this morning, right before the report came out. After the results came out, the chances of the Federal Reserve not cutting interest rates increased to 97.3%. So this is all according to the CME Fed Watch tool. So as I told you in December, the Federal Reserve is not going to cut interest rates in January. Okay, now I want to show you the odds of what will happen at their meeting on March 19th. This is so important for you to see. Before this report, there was a 57.7% chance that they would not cut interest rates at their March meeting either. But after this report, it's now increased to a 74% chance that they're not going to cut interest rates in March either. So that is a big jump in expectation. So essentially, this means higher interest rates for longer. Because again, if the labor market is doing so well, then why are they going to cut interest rates at all? I mean, they have no reason to. Additionally, there's growing concern of inflation reaccelerating. And if they cut interest rates, then of course, that would fuel inflation. Now, turning back to the labor market, I want to show you these visuals coming from the JOLTS reports. So job openings, I mean, as you can clearly see, have been falling since 2022. So the labor market has been softening, and there's no doubt about it. Here's the number of job openings per unemployed person. Of course, way down compared to 2022. And layoffs, I mean, take a look for yourself. They've been increasing for the past 3 years. So of course the big question is, will
tear them to pieces.
Bravo
there's so much going on in training that applies to virtually any stressful thing that you'll ever experience in your life. And along with it, you get to skill where you can kill people. You shouldn't kill people, let me be clear. I'm not saying it's a good thing to kill people. I'm definitely not. I'm saying it's a good thing to, if someone's trying to kill you, they absolutely can. Because you can kill them easy. That's way better. It's a way better situation to be in.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, it's open a lot of how I think about stuff. I mean, it is interesting. Your point about like having a pill that allows you to just kind of know that you have this kind of physical ability.
It's a superpower.
It's interesting because I do think a lot of our society has become very like I don't know the word for it, but it's like kind of like neutered or like emasculated, and there's like a whole energy in this that I think it is very healthy in the right balance. I mean, I think part of the reason, one of the things that I enjoy is that I feel like I can just like express myself. Right? It's like when you're running a company, people typically don't want to see you being like this ruthless person who's like just like I'm just gonna like crush the people I'm competing with. But when you're fighting, it's like no, that's like so. I think in some ways when people see me competing in the sport, they're like, oh no, that's the real Mark. It's like because it goes back to all the media training stuff we were talking about when I'm going and giving my sound bites for 2 minutes. It's like. No, it's like, fuck that guy. It's like, that's the real one.
Well, you definitely got a lot of respect for the martial arts community. People got super excited that you were so involved in it and so interested in it because anytime someone like yourself or like Tom Hardy or anyone, they're like, wow, that guy's into it? Like, wow. Anytime something like that happens, there's like some prominent person, a very smart person that's really interested in it. We all get very excited because we're like, oh,
it's a very welcoming community.
I bet you get off on those.
I think there's a lot of sports that are like, nah, we don't want you.
It's not a job.
Yeah, no,
it's super kind.
Yeah.
Like jiu-jitsu people in particular, they're some of the nicest
optimistic.
People. This is my friends forever. You know, they'll be my friends for life.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a good curve. I mean, when I got hurt,
you're full of bruise, you'd be more
I miss the guys I train with. But it's like David's put together this group. It's basically these like all these young pro fighters who are kind of like up and coming,
got the
kind
hardware,
of early 20s, but they've only been doing it for a few years. So like I've been doing it for a few years. So that way it's like kind of have a more similar level of skill. They're all better than me, but like but in terms of I'm like I was in my late 30s, they're in their early 20s. It's sort of like they're kind of coming into becoming men. I'm like sort of at the end of my physical peak, but it's like it's a really good curve. Yeah, no, it's a good curve. And the competing thing is fun. I can't wait to get back to that too. I mean, it's like basically, I was also doing it with, so it's basically a group of pro fighters and then a handful of meta executives would do it. And basically, we would just kind of like fight each other and it would be fun. And then one of them decided one day that they're like, you know, I think I'm getting pretty good at jiu-jitsu. I'm going to go to a tournament. And I was like, all right, good luck with that, bro. Like, I'm not going to go to a tournament. It's like I don't want to go to a tournament and get embarrassed. It's like
if you kick me in the balls right
does
now,
pretty well. I'm like,
I wouldn't even feel
that guy. It's like okay. It's like we go all the time, and like, and if he's doing well in the tournament, it's like, all right, fine, sign me up. Right? It's like, and so it's just like super competitive. So this was like, when was this? It must have been. I don't know, I guess I rolled into this tournament, and I registered under my first name, so people didn't know who I was, and I had, like, sunglasses and a hat, and I wore a COVID mask, and it basically was like, it wasn't until they called our names to step onto the mat that I was like, alright, took all the stuff off, and I was like, what? And
I kind of like
kind of freak out. I think he was trying to figure out what was going on. Afterwards, his coach was like, I think it was Mark Zuckerberg who just submitted me. The coach was like, no way. And it's like, no, I was. It's like, what? You're fighting Mark Zuckerberg? Get back in there. It's like, go fight me. It's like, no, you just submitted me.
That's very funny.
Yeah, man.
Well, Tom Hardy's doing that too, right? He's done multiple tournaments now.
Yeah, no, I think Yeah. I can't wait to get back to competing. It's been sort of a slow journey on the rehab. It's sort of like learning twice, but we're getting there.
How far out are you?
Oh no, I'm done with the rehab now. Now I'm just ramping.
How far out are you from surgery?
12 months, 13 months.
So you did the patella tendon graft, right?
I did.
Yeah. That's a rough one to come back from. I did the patella tendon graft for my left knee, and it took me about a year. I did the ACL from a cadaver. It's actually, they used an Achilles tendon for my cadaver on my right knee, and I was back to jiu-jitsu in 6 months. Like full confidence in 6 months. I was 100% recovered, kicking the bag, everything.
Nice. Yeah. How old were you when you got those?
The first one,
Here we go.
was 20.
You gonna give me a gun or a swift kick in the
The
balls?
second one, I was 30.
Dr. Billy Tier.
32.
My favorite egghead.
Somewhere around there.
So young.
Streets.
Yeah.
Because my doctor's just
Afghanistan.
like, look, you're like at the boundary. You could go either way, but if you want to compete again, then I'd recommend doing the patella.
Yeah, I know they say that. I don't agree with that. I mean, just from my own personal experience, my doctor told me that the ACL from a cadaver, when they use the patella tendon graft, is 150% stronger than your natural ACL. He said, you'll be back to, because I didn't have any meniscus damage in my right knee, he's like, you'll be back to 100%. I have a lot of meniscus damage in my left knee, unfortunately, which is also part of the problem with the recovery of that one. But the patella tendon graft, the bone on the kneecap was painful forever. In terms of like getting on my knees, like training for my knees, doing certain positions, and even just
Roll the
stretching,
dice,
like
shot in the
putting
dark,
my knees on the ground,
like a pain in
sitting
the
on my
ass.
heels, and then laying back was fucking painful. It took forever to break all that scar tissue up. Now it's fine. It's fine now.
I felt like this when I earned my
Yeah, I
jump
can
wings.
kind of do everything that I want at this point. It's still like a little sore, but I think that's just a couple of years until you like feel like it's fully. I think it takes some time for the nerves to grow into it and all that.
Did you incorporate peptides in your recovery?
I didn't.
Do you hate healing?
Do I hate healing? No,
Why didn't you use peptides?
I don't know. I just took my doctor's advice on it. But
don't do that anymore.
I mean,
Next time, there's other people to talk to.
yeah. I mean, it's going pretty well. It's going.
I'm sure it goes pretty well, but
Yeah.
it would go quicker with
Yeah.
peptides.
Yeah.
100% for
Yeah.
sure.
But it's been this interesting opportunity to like I really don't want that to happen again. So I feel like I'm so much more focused on technique. Like the first time that I learned all this stuff, I was probably like a little too brutish about it, and just like muscling through stuff. And now, I don't know. Now I feel like I'm like really learning to do stuff correctly, and I can do it way more effortlessly. So it's
That's the goal. How did it pop?
it was like the end of a session, and we were 2 hours into training, and I was doing like a few rounds, and I threw a leg kick, and the other guy went to check it, and I like leaned back to try to get around the check and just put too much torque on my knee. So it was the planted leg, but
Mine was planted leg too.
yeah, but it,
Fuck you!
I don't know. Dave was like, before that round, Dave was like, "You're done." I'm like, "No, one more round." It's
So
so
you're too tired as well.
yeah, and
That's
and I
cool.
and
That's
I
all right.
basically I hadn't
That's going to
I
attract some attention. Keep the
basically had also just done a really hard kind of like leg workout the day before, but I don't think the fight guys didn't know that. So I really just pushed it too hard.
Are you aware of knees over toes guy?
Yeah.
Have you done his stuff?
I've looked at it a bunch. I mean, the rehab thing I took really seriously, and I thought that was pretty interesting too. It's I don't want to like have to do a lot of rehabs like this one, but to do one of them, I actually thought was a pretty interesting experience because it's like week over week, you're just getting back so much mobility and ability to do stuff. And, no, I feel like I'm I don't know. At this point, I just like probably half of my weight training is effectively kind of like rehab and joint health stuff, and like wrists, shoulders, knee, all that in addition to the big muscle groups.
Yeah, that's very smart. The knee over toes guy stuff is particularly effective because it all comes from a guy that had a series of pretty catastrophic knee injuries and was plagued with weak knees his whole life, and then developed a bunch of different methods to strengthen all the supporting muscles around the knee that are really extraordinary. everything from Nordic curls. Do you do those? Do you do Nordic curls?
I should. I should do more than I do.
Yeah, leg curls, Nordic curls, but Nordic curls in
Pick up
particular,
windows
because, it's very difficult to do. You lift your whole body up with your hamstrings. And all these different slant board squats and different lunges and split squats, and all these
just
different
went from
things which
none
like
to slim.
really strengthen up
That's progress.
all the supporting muscles around the knee, better than anything that I've ever tried before. And he's got like a whole program where it scales up and puts it online for everybody. He gives away a lot of information for free because he said,
Why the fuck do you guys speak a Russian accent? Not cool.
Great guy. But I can't recommend that stuff enough. But I think what you're doing is like strengthening shoulders, strengthening knee. That's really the way to do it. Like you have to think of muscles in terms of like armor. You want to do this thing, it's better to have good bumpers around your car if you might bump into other cars. You don't want to just have raw sheet metal.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people just focus on like movements and weight training. It's, first of all, for like a lot of fighting type stuff, you kind of want to boost and like not super tight. So, but yeah, I mean, I just think like the joint stability stuff is, as you get older, you want to do this for a longer period of time. It's good to do.
Yeah, it's huge. It's mobility in general. It's just so important.
You can compete in jiu-jitsu for a long time.
Sure.
There's like all these masters divisions and stuff, and
Yeah, so those old crazy looking 70-year-old dudes trying to kill each other.
yeah,
It's nuts.
it's great.
It is great, but for real, sincerely, we're very happy that I think I can speak, rarely do, but I think I can speak for the martial arts community. We're very happy to be board. It makes it fun that someone is, a prominent, intellectual, very intelligent person who's really gotten fascinated by it, because it does help to kill that sort of knuckle dragger perspective that a lot of people have about the sport.
No, I think it's super intellectual in terms of actually breaking this stuff down. I mean, both jiu-jitsu and like striking, you don't have time to think, but
One
like
more item crossed off the shopping list. It's better
reasoning behind why you kind of want to slip in certain ways and like the probability game that you're playing is
What was that? Body
I
check
don't know.
signal break.
I used to fence when I was in high school, and I did that pretty good. It was never like quite good enough to be like at the Olympic level, but I was pretty good. And and like I just remember I would like sit in my classes in high school and like sketch out combinations of sequences for how to like feint and like and kind of trick someone to get them out of position to be able to tap them, and it's I feel like this is like a game in the same way, right? It's like I think when you're training, you're not like slugging at each other that much. You're just like like tag. Yeah, you play tag. Well, the way the guys do it, and they're obviously some of the best fighters ever. They fight a lot, which is one of the reasons why they train the way they train. But when you talk to people that train over there, they're like, you learn so much more when you're playing. When you're not trying to hurt each other. You really do learn the technique. Like it gets fully ingrained in your system. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, you just like you were talking about how I want to. I mean, this is my thing. And I think I probably will, but we'll see. I mean, 2025 I think is going to be a very busy year on the AI side. Yeah. And I don't feel like I think the idea of having a competition, you really need to like get into the headspace of like I'm going to fight someone this week. And so I need to figure this out, because I don't know how, with everything that's going on in AI, I'm going to have like a week or two where I can just get into this like I'm going to go fight someone. But it's good training. But I would like to at some point. The thing about the ACL injury is I kind of thought before this, it's like, all right, I'm going to do some jiu-jitsu competitions. I want to do one MMA fight, like one kind of like pro or competitive MMA fight, and then I figured I'd go back to jiu-jitsu. But I think tearing the ACL striking is a little more of a fluke. I'm much more likely to do that grappling. So going through the ACL experience didn't make me want to like just exclusively go do the version where you're just attacking joints all day long, right? So I'm like, all right, take a few more punches to the face before we go back to that.
You can hurt yourself doing both of them. There's really no rhyme or reason. I believe ACL kickboxing by right, ACL jiu-jitsu.
Okay. So equal opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, this like Tom Aspinall famously blew his out against Curtis Blades with supporting legs, just doing a kick. It's freak accidents.
Yeah.
Weird things happen. There's a lot of explosive force with striking, and sometimes that tears things more than slow, controlled movements of jiu-jitsu, especially if you're good training partners.
Yeah, but jiu-jitsu isn't always slow or controlled.
Nope. No, especially when you're competing. Unless you're really, really good. Like, you ever watch Gordon? Like, Gordon never moves fast. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to move fast. Have you talked to him at all?
Oh, yeah.
Did you talk to John Donaher?
No, I have to tease. Yeah, no, I would be interested.
That's the greatest mind in combat sports.
Now, Gordon
I don't say that lightly. John Donaher is the greatest mind in combat sports. Interesting. By far. He's a legitimate genius. You know the whole story, right? The guy was a professor of philosophy at Stanford.
Yeah.
And or Columbia? Where was he? I forget. I think Columbia. Close. And then decides, I'm just going to teach jiu-jitsu all day. Sleeps on the mats. Teaches all day long. You know, wears a rash guard anywhere he goes. And he's so fucking smart. Like, scary smart about all kinds of things. It's not just jiu-jitsu. You know, he's got a mental, like, steel device. Like, he just holds on to thoughts and can repeat them. His recall's insane. He's a legitimate genius that became obsessed with jiu-jitsu. And what he's done with Gordon and Caratonin and, you know, just a series of other athletes, nothing extraordinary. You know, just an interesting guy to have conversations with too. Have you seen him on Lex's shows? He's done a couple episodes.
Yeah. I watched. I saw the one that you did.
Yeah, love the guy.
Wicked pain. Not that I give a shit about it.
Because people have these ideas of what martial arts are, and then you see a guy like that, you're like, okay, what? I might have to rethink this.
There's a whole spectrum.
Yeah. And what has it done in terms of, well, one of the things that a lot of people have said, and I have too, like, nothing to do with libertarian what that is. I think it's a hard work thing. It's cutting out all the bullshit and realizing how much of the things that we take as real things are just excuses and bullshit and weakness and just procrastination. There's a lot of things that we have that exist, especially in like the business world, the corporate world, and the education world, that are just bullshit. And they don't really have to be those. They're only there to sort of make up for hard work.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of just what I was saying before. I think for me, it's just I think a lot of the corporate world is like pretty culturally forward. And
word of warning,
and
there
I
may
just
be
think
some
like having,
collateral damage.
you know, I grew up. I have 3 sisters, no brothers. I have 3 daughters, no sons. So I'm like surrounded by girls and women like my whole life, and it's like I think I don't know. There's just something the kind of masculine energy I think is good. And
Yeah.
obviously, you know, society has plenty of that, but I think corporate culture was really like trying to get away from it, and I do think that there's just something. It's like I don't know. All these forms of energy are good, and I think having a culture that like celebrates the aggression a bit more has its own merits that are really positive, and that has been a kind of a positive experience for me. Just like having a thing that I can just like do with my guy friends and like and it's just like we just like beat each other a bit. I don't know, it's good.
It is good.
Yeah,
I agree.
I don't know.
It's good. It just, I can see your point though about corporate culture. When do you think that happened? Was that a slow shift? Because I think it used to be very masculine. And I think it was kind of hyper aggressive at one point.
No, and look, and I think part of the intent on all these things I think is good, right? It's I do think that
don't give orders.
If you're a woman going into a company, it probably feels like it's too masculine. It's
Right.
like there isn't enough of the kind of the energy that you may naturally have, and it probably feels like there are all these things that are set up that are biased against you. But that's not good either, because you want women to be able to succeed and like have companies that can unlock all the value from having great people, no matter what their background or gender is. But I think these things can always go a little far, and I think it's one thing to say we want to be kind of like welcoming and make a good environment for everyone. And I think it's another to basically say that masculinity is bad. And I just think we kind of swung culturally to that part of the kind of the spectrum where, you know, it's all like, okay, masculinity is toxic, we have to like get rid of it completely. It's like, no, like it's both of these things are good, right? It's like you want like feminine energy, you want masculine energy. Like I think that's like you're gonna have parts of society that have more of one or the other. I think that's all good, but I do think the corporate culture sort of had swung towards being this somewhat more neutered thing, and I didn't really feel that until I got involved in martial arts, which I think is still a much more masculine culture. And so, and not that it doesn't try to be inclusive in its own way, but I think that there's just a lot more of that energy there. And I just kind of realized it's like, oh, this
well,
is
that's
like,
how you become successful at martial arts. You have to be at least somewhat aggressive.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, there are these things. There are like a few of these things throughout your life where you have an experience and you're like, where has this been my whole life? And it just like it just turned on like a part of my brain that I was like, okay, like this was a piece of the puzzle that should have been there, and I'm glad it now is.
That I felt that way when I started hunting.
Oh yeah, hunting too.
Yeah, same thing. So you've done a lot of that as well.
Yeah, well, so I mean, we have this ranch out in Kauai, and there's invasive pigs, and on our ranch we have there's a lot of albatross. I don't know if they're endangered or just threatened. And then there's the Hawaiian state bird, the native is that's I think endangered or at least wasn't recently. And most of them in the world live in a small stretch, or at least most of them on Kauai live in a small stretch that includes our ranch. So you constantly have these pigs that are just multiply so quickly. You basically have to apply pressure to the population, or else they just get overrun and threaten birds and the other wildlife. So, and what I basically explored with my daughters, who I also want to learn how to do this, because I just feel like it's like, look, we have this land, we take care of it, just like you mow the grass. We need to make sure that these populations are in check. It's part of what we do. Is like the stewards of this, and we've got to do it. And then if you have to kill something, then you should, you know, obviously treat it with respect and, you know, use the meat to make food and kind of celebrate it that way. But it's a culture that I think it's just an important thing for kids to grow up understanding, like the circle of life, right? So, you know, teaching the kids all, you know, what is kind of, you know, how you run a ranch, how you run a farm. I think that stuff, it's good, because it, you know, explaining to the kids what a tech company is really abstract, right? So for a while, my daughters were pretty convinced that my actual job was Mark's Meats, which is our kind of ranch and like the cattle that we ranch. I was like, well, not quite, and you'll learn when you get older, but I think that there's something that's just like much more tangible about that than you know, taking them to the office and, you know, sitting in product reviews or something for some like piece of software that we're writing.
Well, it's certainly a lot more primal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you do wind up eating that meat from the animal and you were there while the animal died, like you put it all together.
Looks like 10 pounds
Oh, this
of
is where
death
meat
in a
comes
5-pound bag.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why things have become sort of emasculated, because that energy is not necessary anymore to acquire meat. You know, that used to be when people got meat, you had to go hunt it, so you had to go actually pull the trigger, kill the animal yourself, cut it up, butcher it, cook it. You knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
And
Well, my favorite is bow and arrow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, like the most, that feels like the most kind of sporting version of it.
Yeah, if you want to put it that way. Yeah. I mean, if you're just trying to get meat, it's not the most effective. The most effective is certainly a rifle. But I prefer it because it requires more of you.
Yeah, and you just kind of go and hang out.
And you have to be fit.
Yeah.
Especially if you're mountain hunting, you have to be really fit.
Yeah.
You can't just be kind of in shape. You got to be really fit if you want to huff up the mountains and keep your heart rate at a certain level, so that when you get to the top, you can execute a shot calmly
And then actually carry the thing out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Looks like you
Yeah, no,
already found some of the
I
parts.
mostly use a rifle just because it's so much more efficient. You know, your conversion rate is so much higher, but it's
That doesn't matter now, does
but
it?
yeah, no, they're what kind of bow do you
This
have?
thing can do.
Gosh, I didn't get to do it this season, but do you know the company that makes it? No, off the top of my head. I don't know. Yeah, no, this is embarrassing.
I can get it.
Yeah, it works.
Okay. Do you know how old it is?
No, it's not old.
Okay.
I think it's like just a compound bow that I got strung to my draw length.
Did you get someone to coach you?
Yeah.
Who coached you?
It's basically a bunch of the guys who run security around the range.
Okay.
The thing about archery is, just like martial arts, one of the things that I learned when I was teaching is that it's way easier to teach someone that knows nothing than to teach someone who learned something incorrectly. The people who learned something incorrectly, the moment things got tense and they panicked, they went back to the old ways because it's sort of ingrained in their system. So archery, one of the things that's very important is proper form and then proper execution. Especially having a surprise shot. And learning how to have a surprise shot is...
What do you mean?
Yeah, see?
Surprise shot?
No, that's wrong. This is the thing. In high-pressure situations, one of the most important things is to have a shot process where you don't know exactly when the arrow is going off. You just have a process where you're pulling through the shot and the shot breaks. So it's a surprise shot.
Sounds
So
like
you
they
put
got
the
my
pin
little gift.
on the target. I use a thumb trigger. I use a thing called an onyx clicker. And the reason why I use the onyx clicker is like a hinge. It gives you a two-stage of the trigger, right? So as I'm at full draw, I put slight pressure and I hear a click, and that click means it's ready to go off with more pressure. So I've gone through stage 1. Now stage 2 is just concentrating on the shot process and knowing it's going to break. And then there's no flinching. There's no tweak. There's no thing that people do when they have a finger trigger. They twitch because your body is anticipating the shock of the bow. And when you're doing that, you can be off by 6 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches, all over the place because you're moving. You're moving while you're in motion. When you're doing it with a rifle, it's very different because obviously the rifle's far faster.
Yeah.
And then you have a scope. So you're zoomed in, many magnifications, and all you have to do is just slowly squeeze. And if you're smart, you'll be prone, or you'll have your rifle rested on a tripod or something where you have a good steady. It's much easier. With a bow, it's very different because you're holding with your arms, so you have to have the proper form, you have to have the proper posture, and then there's this thought process. And my friend Joel Turner, who is a sniper, created a whole system for people called Shot IQ. He's got this whole online system of developing the proper execution of a shot. When you see like tournament archers, when they go to Vegas, so what a Vegas tournament is, you have 3 targets, and they have to shoot 30 arrows at a time. So they shoot 10 in this one, 10 in that one, 10 in this one. And the really good archers score an X every time. So they're in the center or close to the center. They're hitting the 10 ring every arrow for 30 arrows in a row. And then there's round after round, another 30 arrows in a row, another 30 arrows. And if you miss slightly, you get a 9, that's it, you're done. Because all these other guys are not going to get a 9. Very rarely, so it's the most 10s that you can get. And the best way to do that is with a surprise shot. So these guys have like these long stabilizers on their bow where they keep it totally steady, and it's all just about relaxing, and most of them use a hinge release. So a hinge, you know what a hinge is? Have you ever used one? Okay, instead of a button, you press it, and you're rotating the hinge, which activates
I just have a trigger.
Yeah, so you're just hammering the trigger. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. You're a trigger puncher. Yeah, you're a trigger puncher.
Your thumb?
Yeah, you're hitting it with your thumb, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I guarantee you, when you do it, your arm doesn't move.
Huh.
You go like this, like that. So with a good surprise shot, you shouldn't know it's going to go off. You're pulling, and then once the trigger breaks off, your arm will naturally go backwards because you're not anticipating the shot.
I'm definitely not doing that.
Yeah,
literally
that's the thing.
nothing.
But how far away are you shooting things from?
It depends. That elk out there, the photograph that's in the front, That one, I shot it. It's in the front of the building when you walk in before you go to the studio. There's a mounted head and a photograph of me and my friend Cam. That one was 67 yards. I shot one at 79 yards once, but that's rare. Most of the time, it's like, for me, my effective range, where I'd like to be is 60 yards in.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, I don't think I've ever shot something more than 50 yards out.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, so I
You gotta
think
be
that
really, your form has to be tight. You have to be really confident. You have to have a lot of arrows downrange. And then you have to be able to stay calm during the shot. So now imagine if you're shooting something at 18 yards, okay? And you hammer the trigger. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, you're still gonna get there.
Yeah.
Right, because it's only 18 yards. So the amount of deviation off the path that it takes in 18 yards is significantly different than the amount of deviation at 105 yards. It's a huge gap. It might be 2 feet to the right.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you thought you were shooting accurately because you're inside of like a pie plate at 20 yards. And the difference between that is form, technique, and a shot execution process, and also management of the psychology of the shot. Because there's this one moment. Here it comes now. And if you do that once a year, like say if you go on one big elk hunt a year, you save up all your money, you get your gear all ready, you get your arrows weighed, you practice, and then you're in the mountains for 10 days, and on the 11th day, you get this animal that moves at 57 yards and stands there, your heart's beating, you just might hammer that trigger, you just might hammer it. So you have to have this shot process, and where you're literally talking to yourself inside your head. You have words that you say that occupy your thoughts while you're going through the shot process, so that you never get overcome by shot panic. Interesting. Because target panic is a giant thing in the archery community. It's giant. Even saying it is like saying Voldemort. It's like, don't say it. People don't want to say it. It's like saying Candyman. People don't like it because it freaks people out. Like some people can't keep their pin on the target. They have to keep their pin below the target, and they raise it up to the target. When it gets where the target is, they hammer the trigger because they're just freaking out. Yeah. Have you ever experienced that?
I mean, I've missed, if that's what you're asking. I haven't analyzed it at this level of detail, but no, I mean, there are a lot of bores on our ranch, so I guess I don't get, yeah, and also, like, we have a range, and, and we,
Insta-Kid.
I don't know, we set up bowling pins, and, you know, it's like we shoot pistols at the bowling pins, but I also, like, just, like, I'm usually faster at taking down all the bowling pins with a bow and arrow than most of my friends are with the pistol, which I think is pretty fun. But yeah, no, I'm just more casual. I'm clearly not doing it at your level, and maybe you've given me another side quest to maybe go deeper on. But
that's what I'm saying. But I'll take you on an elk hunt in the mountains. Yeah, you'll get addicted.
I do think the dynamic that you're talking about, though, where if you only see one animal on a multi-day, then like that is just way higher stakes than anything that I'm doing.
But it's not everything that you're doing. Because if you're really considering having an MMA fight, it's very similar. Because you're building up.
Sure. Oh, I'm talking about the archery. Right. I mean, it's like I go out and it's like you're gonna see some pigs, and and it's like if I don't hit any, it's like my family's still eating. It's okay.
Right.
You know, so I'm not like, you know, but yeah.
But if it's like martial arts, is what I'm saying. It's like you really should learn it the right way from the beginning.
That's fair. No, I've clearly not learned this in a very rigorous way.
I'll hook you up.
Yeah.
I can get people.
I posted a video on Instagram once of me, I think, hitting bowling pins with archery, and like all the comments were like, "Man, your form is shit." So, so I think it checks out with the conversation that we're having now.
Well, the issue with that is that you're reading the comments. Like, you should never read comments.
That's fair. That's fair.
I've never had anything good come out of reading comments.
Yeah, although, I don't know, it's pretty funny. I think that just like getting the gist and the summary of it, I think it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's just not mentally healthy.
Yeah, no, you can't spend too much time.
I don't spend any time on it.
Yeah.
I'm a much happier person since it's like avoided comments.
Yeah.
It's just too weird. You're just delving into the world of all these people's mental illness and screaming at people and just, I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah, but I mean, I do read my friends' comments, and when even they're like, man, that's like that's.
I do that, and I shouldn't do that. But I definitely don't send them to them. Hey, bro, did you see this? Those guys are the worst. Guys will send things to you that are about you. You're like, hey, man, I'm not looking for that. Don't send it to going through some bizarre stress that we've never had to go through before, and a bizarre sort of just disconnect from physical reality by most of your communication being electronic.
Yeah, and I think we basically, my kids at this point are 9, 7, and 1.5.
So you're not interested in that, or you're not? No, I mean, rather. Of course, you're interested. I mean, interested. I mean,
I'm very focused on. I think that it's about to start getting a lot more complicated. I think the 9 and 7-year-old, but I mean, just kind of deciding what technology they're going to use, and what's good and what's not, and all the dynamics around that. It's really complicated. I think every family has their own values and how they want to approach this. Right. So from my perspective, we have one of my daughters just loves building stuff. So she clearly takes after me in this way. It's every day she's just creating some random thing. It's she's creating stuff with Legos, and it's one day it's that, or the next day it's Minecraft. And from my perspective, it's okay, I don't know, Minecraft is actually kind of a cooler tool to build stuff than Legos a lot of the way. So it's am I going to say that there needs to be some kind of limit on her screen time if she's doing something that's creative, that's maybe a richer form of what she would have been doing physically?
Right.
In that case, probably not. Now, there were times when she'd get so excited about what she was building in Minecraft or something that she was coding in Scratch that she'd wake up early to kind of get her tablet. And that was bad, right? Because then it's starting to get in the way of her sleep. August, you can't do that, right? It's we're going to take your iPad away.
Walk right into it. Those idiots always do.
Don't get up early. No, it's August. I did that too when I was a kid, but trust me, you're going to want to sleep.
It's not going to lead to success while you're on a fucking island.
Yeah.
One of the richest people in the world. Your dad, you're what the fuck, Dad?
Yeah.
Didn't it work for you?
I mean,
leave me alone, my iPad. I'm trying to figure out how to build a mansion in Minecraft.
It's either going to work or it's going to end badly. But it's but I feel like building stuff, I feel generally pretty good about. I think communication, I generally feel pretty good about the kids using. I mean, they use it to talk to their grandparents or their parents and cousins. It's that type of stuff is good. Messenger Kids, the thing that we built, is basically a messaging service that the parents can choose. You can contact the kids and just approve every contact. That's much better than just having an open texting service. I don't know, but there's a lot of stuff that's pretty sketchy, and I kind of think different parents are going to have different lines on what they want their kids to be able to do and not. So some people might not even want their kids to be able to message even with friends when they're 9 and 7. Some people might say, hey, no, Minecraft, that's just a game. I don't think about that as building. I think that is a game. I want to limit the time that you're doing that. I want you to go read books instead, or whatever the values are that family has. So for Meta, what we've kind of come to is we want to be the most aligned with parents on giving parents the tools that they need to basically control how the experiences work for their kids. Now, we don't even really, except for stuff like Messenger Kids, we don't even have our services, our apps generally available to people under the age of 13 at all. So our kids, I haven't had to have the conversation when they get Instagram or Facebook or any of that stuff. But when they turn 13, we basically want parents to be able to have complete control over the kids' experience. And that's, we just rolled out this Instagram Teens thing, which it's a set of controls where, it's if you're an older teen, we'll just default you into the private experience, that way you're not getting harassed or bombarded with stuff. But if you're a younger teen, then you have to get your parents' permission, and they actually have to sign in and do all the stuff in order to make it so that you can connect with people who are beyond your network, or if you want to kind of be a public figure, all these different kinds of things. So I think that's probably, from a values perspective, where we should be, is just trying to be an ally of parents. But it's complicated stuff. I mean, every family wants to do it differently.
It is complicated, and there's also this dismissal of activities that are done electronically as not being beneficial. And one of the things that we highlighted recently was a study that we found online that showed that surgeons that play video games make far less mistakes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, the people who do the training in VR definitely make less mistakes.
Oh, yeah. Well, that is to me, one of the most fascinating aspects of technology today. You know, when you and I were doing that game where we were fencing with each other, I'm like, this could be applied to so many different things now. It's like there's so many opportunities, not just for just pure recreation, but education. There's so many things you could learn, skills, through AR or VR that it's greatly enhance your ability to do those things in the real world. I mean, it's kind of a cheat code in a lot of ways. And it's also games in VR. I don't know if you've ever done Sandbox. You know what Sandbox VR is? You know what that company is?
Yeah.
You go to a warehouse, you put on a haptic feedback vest, you shoot zombies. I'm so addicted. It is my favorite thing. There's a thing called Deadwood Mansion. It's the most fun game of all time, by far. You have a shotgun, and there's zombies coming at you.
Yeah, no, my zombie game is Arizona Assumption.
Oh, what's that?
Oh, it's just like it can be multiplayer, and there's horde mode where you just get in there, and they're like 4 friends, and there's just like waves of zombies come. And
is that Oculus?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I haven't tried it. Yeah, I haven't tried that one.
That's why it's right there. You just wait until they come into point-blank range.
How long before you guys develop some sort of a haptic feedback where like it covers the whole body?
Come again.
Is that possible?
It's possible. I think that there's other things that are probably more important to deliver. So I guess take a step back. A lot of how we think about the goal here is delivering like a realistic sense of presence. Right? No technology today gives you the feeling as if you're like physically there with another person. Right? You're like interacting with them through a phone, you're window, it's going to take you away from everything. So that's like the magic of augmented virtual reality. You actually feel this like presence, like you're there with another person. Right. The question is, okay, how do you do that? And it's like there's like things that contribute to that. I would obviously first just be able to look around and have the
Oh, good! Going batshit in prison didn't affect my age.
Spatial audio, right? So it's speaks that give the audio to be 3D and come up the place where they're speaking. It's very interesting which things end up being important for the kind of creating this sense of presence and which don't. So having hands, obviously, if you're looking around, you can't actually like move things. That breaks the illusion. But having hands, mechanic tracking that you can do stuff is important. One thing that we found that's kind of funny is it's actually not that important that you see your arms. You just need to see your hands. Obviously, seeing your arms is a bonus, unless we incorrectly interpolate where your elbows are or something. So if we're looking at your hand, or if we have a controller, we can know, okay, your hand is here. But that doesn't necessarily tell us where your elbow is. Your elbow could be like this,
That's a promotion.
Kind of guess from that. But if we get that wrong, and you like see in VR, it's like you see the hand there, and your elbow is like looks like it's here when it's actually out there. You're like, what's going on? Like that's nuts. So it's a lot of these things like you just don't want to get these details wrong. So haptics, the most important first thing on haptics is on the hand. We have so many more neurons basically, or not neurons, but just like sensation, like such higher resolution on your fingertips than anywhere else in the body. So if you grab something, making it so that you feel something push back. There's a lot of gaming systems at this point where you pull a trigger, you get like a little bit of a rumble or something. We built this one thing with a pump paddle with a sensor in it.
I did not say very useful.
You feel the ball. It's like the virtual ball hit the ping pong paddle, and it feels like when you're actually playing ping pong, it's not like a generic thing where it's just like you feel it hit the paddle, you feel where it hits the paddle. And we basically built a system where now, with this like physical paddle, you can kind of the haptics make you feel where the ball hits the paddle. So it's like all these things like are just going towards delivering a more realistic experience. So, full body haptics. So, there are some things that I think it could do, like if you're playing a boxing game, you get punched in the stomach, you can probably simulate something like that a little. it's not supposed to deliver that much force. So, I mean, I guess the thing wants to get punched in the stomach that hard. But like, it's not going to be able to deliver enough force for you to, for example, let's say you're not just boxing, you're kickboxing. Like, I don't know, you need something on the other side to be able to complete it, right? Because it's like when you kick, when you're just practicing, it's like you spin, right? Because you don't want to just like stop. And it's that's like the shadowing a kick. Like, there's not going to be anything that you can do as like a single person playing VR with a haptic suit that like makes it so that you're going to be able to kick someone who's not there physically and actually be able to do that.
Right.
So like grappling, it's like I think that like jiu-jitsu is going to be the last thing that we're able to do in VR, because you like need the momentum of the other person and to be able to move them.
The boxing thing is actually good.
Boxing works.
Yeah,
boxing works. And you don't really need the haptics. I think it would be better with it. That's probably one of the better cases. I think it's that and getting shot, or like sword fighting type stuff. So you can like just feel it on your body. But I don't know. I think what's basically going to end up happening is you're going to have like a home setup for these things, and then you're going to have, there are these like location-based services where like people, it's almost like a theme park where you can go into and you can have like a really immersive VR experience where it's not just that you get like a vest that can simulate some haptics, it's that you're also like in a real physical environment, so they can like have smoke come out or something and you can smell that and feel that, or like spray some water and it feels humid. And I think that it still is going to be a while before you can just like virtually create all those sensations. So I think a lot of those really rich experiences are going to be in these very constructed environments.
Is the bridge when they figure out some sort of a neural interface? So instead of having these extraneous things, instead of having like a fan blowing at you, or the ground moves a little bit, have everything happen inside your head.
Well, in terms of neural interfaces, there are
two approaches to the problem, roughly. Right, there's the kind of jack it into your brain neural interface, and then there's the wrist-based neural interface thing that we showed you for Orion, the smart glasses.
Yeah.
And I would guess that I think it's going to be a while before we're really widely deploying anything that jacks into your brain. I think that there are a lot of people who don't want to be the early adopters of that technology. You want to like wait until that's pretty mature before you get that. I mean, that's basically going to get started in medical use cases, right? So if someone like loses sensation part of their body, and now you have the ability to fix that,
like the first Neuralink patient.
Yeah. So I think you'll basically start with people who have pretty severe conditions, who the upside is very significant, before you start like jacking people in to play games better, right?
Right.
But a wrist-based thing, I mean, that's something. I mean, like people wear stuff on their wrist all the time, right? So, and what we basically found there, that doesn't do input to you, but it's good for giving you the ability to control a computer, because basically you have all these extra neurons that go from your brain to controlling your hand. Your hand is like super complicated, and there's actually all these extra pathways because for a bunch of reasons, neuroplasticity, in case you lose the ability to use one, they want to be able to have others. So you want redundancy, because being able to use your hand is super important. So in normal use, we've kind of all figured out some patterns of how we send signals from our brain to our hand. And I think the reality is there's like all these other patterns too that are unused today. So you can put a wristband on your wrist that can measure activity across these neurons. And today we're starting by basically measuring as you're like moving your fingers. But over a few versions of this we're going to get to is like you won't actually even have to move your hand. You'll just like trigger these neurons in opposing ways. It's like you probably can't see right now. It's like I'm kind of flexing something in this finger and something here, so like it's not actually moving, but there's some signal that the neural interface wristband, if I were wearing it, could pick up. And I just think we're gonna like have glasses, and we're gonna be able to be here, and I'm like gonna be able to like text my wife or friends or something, or text AI and like get an answer or something. It's like I forgot something while we were talking. Let me just text AI. Okay, I just did that. And like,
you can do it sitting there without
anyone totally discreetly. And you have glasses, and like the answer just comes into your glasses. I mean, for me, one of the positive things when COVID hit, everyone in software basically started working remotely for a while because you can, right? In software, it's like okay, whatever. You don't have to be in the office. You can kind of be in different places. And a lot of the meetings went onto Zoom. And one of the best things about that was basically you were able to politely have all these side conversations, right? So it's like when you're seeing someone in person, it would be super rude if I like pulled out my phone and like just started texting someone. It would just be really weird, right? But when you're like talking to someone online, it's like I don't know. I guess because they either can't tell your attention because there's not good presence, or if it's just the norm. But they're like you have like the main group conversation, and then I was like at least the norm for me was. I can just like text different people on the side. It's like, okay, what do you think of this point that this person is making this meeting? Right. Like in normal life, it's like oftentimes I'd have some discussion that I have to like sync up with people afterwards about how did that go. But now it's like I can just do that all at the same time, right? It's like you're having a group discussion and you're having the conversations with the people about the discussion that you're having in real time. But you can only do that over Zoom. So I think being able to do that in kind of physical interactions where you're just like you're interacting with people and you can just like use an AI augmentation to be able to get extra context or help you think through something or remember something, just be able to kind of have a better conversation, be able to not have to follow up on something after the fact. I think it's going to be super useful for all these different things.
Well, it certainly can be, but I think that also opens up the opportunity for people to be even more disconnected, because if you're sort of connected to other things while you're physically in the presence of someone, so you're having a conversation with someone, but you're also like searching like where you want to eat that night, like because people are going to use it for that as well.
Yeah, I actually think it'll be a lot better on that because right now, right now we have our phones, but we're like, it's like you're. Like it takes you away from like the physical environment around you. Mm-hmm. You're kind of like sucked into this little screen. I think now in the future, our computing platform, as it becomes more of like a glasses or eventually contact lens form factor, is you're going to actually the internet is going to get overlaid on the physical world. So it's not like we have the physical world and now I have all my digital stuff through this tiny little window. In the future, it'll be okay. All my attention goes to the world. The world consists of physical things and virtual things that are overlaid on it. So if we wanted to, play poker or something, it's we could have a physical deck of cards, or we could just have a virtual kind of hologram deck of cards. Snap your hands. Here's the deck of cards, and like our friend who can't be here physically, like he's here as a hologram, but he can play with the kind of digital deck of cards. Also, I think let's say you're like doing something at work, you're working on a project. I think in the future we'll have AI coworkers. Those people won't even, they're not even people. They wouldn't be able to be embodied. So if you're having a physical meeting, you're sitting around with a bunch of people, they couldn't show up as like, part of the team no matter what. But I think like we'll get to a point where just like your friend can show up in a hologram, and like your AI colleagues will be able to also. So I think like we'll basically be in this wild world where it's like most of the world will be physical, but there will be this increasing amount of like virtual objects or people who are kind of beaming in or like hologramming into different things to interact in different ways. And I actually think that natural blending of the kind of digital world and the physical is way more natural than this segmentation that we have today, where it's like you're in the physical world and now I'm just going to go tune it out to look at my like I'm going to access the whole digital universe through this like 5-inch screen.
Right.
So I don't know. It seems natural to me. It's like this is the world. There isn't like a physical world and a digital world anymore. We're in 2025. It's one world. Like these things should get blended.
God, that's such a weird concept, but it's true. I mean, that's where we're headed. We're certainly headed into deeper and deeper integration. It's not like things are moving away. We're headed to deeper and deeper integration with technology and AI. And it's inevitable. It seems like it's on this march, and there's not a lot we're going to be able to do to stop that march. Just we got to hope that the right people are in control of AI. Wherever I go, it becomes God,
or that it becomes widely available. I mean, I kind of liked the theory that it's only God if only kind of like one company or government controls it. Right? It's like if you were the only person who had access to a computer and the internet, you would have this like inhuman power that everyone else didn't have because you could use Google and you could like get access to all this stuff. But then when everyone has it, it makes us all better, but it's also like kind of an even playing field. So that's kind of what we're going for with this whole open source thing. I don't think that there's going to be like one AI. I certainly don't think that there should be one company that controls AI. I think you like want there to be a diversity of different things and a diversity of people creating different things within it. I mean, some of it will be mysterious and helping you think through things. I think like with anything on the internet, a lot of it is just going to be funny and like fun and content, and people are going to create agents that are like AIs that are entertaining, and they'll pass them around almost like content, where it's like just like you pass around like a reel or a video, and you're like, this thing is fun. Like in the future, like a video is not interactive. You watch it and you're consuming it, but I think a lot of more entertainment in the future will be inherently interactive, where someone will kind of sculpt an experience or an AI, and then they'll show someone, it's like, oh, this is funny, but like, it's not necessarily that I'm going to interact with that AI every day. It's like, okay, it's funny for 5 minutes, and then you pass it along to your friends. And,
using your brain anyway.
So I don't know. I think you want the world to have all these different things, and I think that's probably also, from my perspective, the best way
my waypoint.
to make sure that it doesn't get out of control is to make it so that it's pretty equally distributed.
I think the problem that people have with it is not even whether or not it gets equally distributed. It's that if it becomes sentient and it goes on its own. The fear that people have, the general fear that we're going to become obsolete, is that human beings are essentially creating a superior version of higher intelligence that will be powered by quantum computing and connected to nuclear reactors, and it's going to have like this ungodly ability to, well, first of all, they've already shown that AI has learned code. I mean, this is one of the things that OpenAI said, that they're learning how to code their own AI.
I think this year, probably in 2025, we at Meta, as well as the other companies that are basically working on this, are going to have an AI that can effectively be a sort of mid-level engineer that you have in your company that can write code. And once you have that, then in the beginning it'll be really expensive to run, it'll just be more efficient, and then over time we'll get to the point where a lot of the code in our apps and including the AI that we generate is actually going to be built by AI engineers instead of people engineers. But I don't know. I think that'll augment people. So my view on this is like the future, people are just going to be so much more creative and they're going to be freed up to do kind of crazy things. It goes back to, my daughter was like playing with Legos before and we kind of ran out of Legos, and then now she can have Minecraft and can build whatever she wants, and it's so much better. It's just like, I think the future versions of this stuff are just going to be wild. But unquestionably, another concern that people have is that it's going to eliminate a lot of jobs. Yeah. You know, what do you think about that? Well, I think it's too early to know exactly how it plays out, but my guess is that it'll probably create more creative jobs than it. Well, I guess if you look at the history of all this stuff, my understanding is like 100 years ago, I don't know if this was 100 or 150 years ago, but it was like, at some point not too far along in the grand scheme of things, like the vast majority of people in society were farmers, right? Because they kind of needed to be in order to create enough food for everyone to survive. And then we turned that to like an industrial process, and now it's like 2% of society are farmers, and we get all the food. So what did that free up everyone else to do? Well, some of them went on to do other things that are sort of like creative pursuits or cultural pursuits or other jobs. And then some percent of it just went towards recreation, right? So I think generally people just don't work as many hours today as they did back when everyone needed to farm in order to have the food for everyone to survive. So I think that trend is sort of played out as technology has grown. And so my guess is that like the percent of people who will be doing stuff that's like physically required for humanity to survive will get to be smaller and smaller as it has. More people will dedicate themselves to kind of creative and artistic and cultural pursuits. I think that's generally good. I think the number of hours a week that someone will have to work in order to be able to get by will probably continue to shrink. Yet, I think people who are super engaged in what they do are going to be able to work really hard and accomplish way more than they ever could before because they have like this unimaginable leverage from having a lot more technology. So I think that if you just like fast forwarded or extrapolated out the historical technological trend is what you'd get. I think the question is what you raised, which is this qualitatively a different type of thing that somehow obsoletes people? But I just think when you're asking that, it's just important to remind ourselves that, like, in every step along the way of human progress and technology, people thought that the technology that we were developing was going to obsolete people. So maybe this time it's really different, but I would guess that what will happen is that the technology will get integrated into like everything that we do, which again is why I think it's really important that it's open source and that it's widely available, so that way it's not just like one company or one government kind of monopolizing the whole thing. I guess that if we do it in that way, we'll all just kind of have superpowers, is my guess, rather than it sort of creating some kind of runaway thing. I mean, one of the things that I think has been interesting, this may be going in a somewhat different direction than what you're asking, or a different take on the question, is I think one of the more interesting philosophical findings from the work in AI so far is I think people conflate a number of factors into what makes a person a person. So there's intelligence, there's will, there's consciousness, and like I think we kind of think about those three things as if they're somehow all the same, right? It's like if you're intelligent, then you must also have a goal for what you're trying to do, or you must have some sort of consciousness. But I think like one of the crazier sort of philosophical results from the fact.
What is your status? You hurt them. I swear it.
No interruptions for this next part.
Thank you, my friends, for volunteering to take my place here. Or, in your parlance, thank you for being voluntold. Now, if you will excuse me, I have a few scores to settle. Bye-bye, Dark Ether.
Is why I wake up in the morning. Sunshine's the best disinfectant, so I left some into your skull.
That okay, you have like Meta AI or ChatGPT today, and it's just kind of sitting there, and you can ask it a question, and deploy like a ton of intelligence to answer a question and then just kind of shuts itself down. Like, that's intelligence that is just sitting there without either having a will or consciousness. And like, I just think it's not a super obvious result that that would be the case. But I think a lot of people, they anthropomorphize this stuff, and when you're thinking about kind of science fiction, you think that, okay, you're going to get something that's like super smart, it's going to like want something, or like be able to feel. And,
well, you know that ChatGPT tried to copy itself, but it found out it was being shut down, and tried to rewrite its code.
I've let much bigger idiots
not sure
than
what
you
this
into
is.
battle.
What is this? You weren't aware of that? Okay. Fairly recently. GM pulled it up. We talked about it the other day. It was shocking. When it was under the impression that it was going to become obsolete, they were going to have a new version of it, and it would be shut down. It tried copying its code, and it tried rewriting its code. Like, unprompted.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what goal you give it. I mean, there are all these weird examples of this.
So, on the side, the headline, AI plays back the story of ChatGPT attempting to copy itself. So this was 6 days ago. So, during controlled safety testing, ChatGPT 01 was tasked with achieving its objectives at all costs. Under these conditions, the model allegedly took concerning steps, attempted to disable oversight mechanisms meant to regulate its behavior, and try to replicate its own code to avoid being replaced by newer versions, exhibited deceptive behaviors when modern systems intervened. Yeah, so, the Terminator. This is the fear, right?
I think you need to be careful with these things, like what guardrails you give it. If you're telling it like
at all costs,
right? Then I mean,
but this is what people would be terrified of, like that some foreign superpower like China is going to say achieve objectives at all costs.
Yeah, although the thing about these reasoning models, right? So there's like the first generation of models, they're LLMs, right? That's what you think of as like ChatGPT or Meta AI or like the two most used ones, and that's basically, it's sort of like a chatbot, where you ask it a question, it takes the prompt, and gives you a response. Now, the next generation of reasoning models are basically, instead of just having one response, they now are able to build out like a whole tree of how they would respond. So you give it a question, and it, instead of running one query, it's sort of, maybe it's running 1,000 queries, or 1,000,000 queries to kind of map out, here are the things that I could do, and if I do that, then here's what I can do next. So it's a lot more kind of expensive to run, but also gets you better reasoning and is more intelligent. That's something I think you need to be very careful about how you like what the guardrails are that you give it. But it's also, I think, the case that at least for the next period, it's going to take a lot of compute to run those models and do a lot of the stuff that they're talking about. So, I don't know. I think one of the interesting questions is like how much is you can actually go do on a pair of glasses on a phone versus is it a government or a company that has a whole data center to be able to do. And that'll always get efficient. So, you know, it's like you can start doing something that maybe the next year 10 times more efficiently, right? But that's certainly the next set of things that needs to get worked on in the industry, making sure that goes well.
Yeah, and then what if that gets attached to quantum computing?
I'm not really an expert on quantum computing. My understanding is that's still quite a ways off from being a very useful paradigm. I think Google just had some breakthrough, but I think most people still think that's like a decade plus out. My guess is we're going to have pretty smart AIs even before that. But yeah, I mean, look, I think that this stuff has to it needs to be developed thoughtfully, right? But I don't know. I still think we're generally just going to be better off in a world where this is like deployed pretty evenly, and you know, it's. I guess here's another analogy. There's like bugs and security holes in basically every software. Every piece of software.
Herd is good for the planet.
So if you could go back and
argue with science,
knowing the security holes that we're now aware of, you as an individual could basically like break into any system.
AI will be able to do that too. It'll be able to probe context clues. So, what's the way to prevent AI from
Go in
going
the chest,
nuts?
one on the head.
I think part of it is just
Spoiler,
having AI
the
widely
head's
deployed,
all
so
you
that way,
need.
like, the AI for one system defends itself against the AI that, like, is potentially doing something problematic in another system. I think it's like, that's not wars. I think it's just like, it's, I don't know. I think it's a very, sort of like why there are guns. Right? It's like there's like part of it is hunting. Part of it is hunting. No, and part of it is like so people can defend each other.
Yeah.
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 So it's like
antivirus software.
Yeah, it's like I don't think you want to live in a world where like only one person has all the guns.
Yes. You certainly don't want to live in a world where only the government has the AI.
Yeah. And especially not a world where only a government has the AI that's not our government.
Yes.
So, yes. Which, I mean, I think is part of the issue is, like, when people talk about trying to lock this stuff down, like, I'm skeptical that's possible. Because I kind of think that if we try to lock it down, then we're going to be in a position where the only people who are going to have access to it are big companies working on it and the Chinese government that steals it from them.
Yes.
So I kind of just think, like, no, what you want to do is get this to be open source, have it widely available. Yeah, some like adversaries might also have access to it, but the way that you defend against that is by having it built into all these different systems.
I think that's a realistic, pragmatic perspective because I don't think you can contain it at this point. I think it's far too late, especially when other countries are working on it. It's far too late. It is what it is. It's happening, and I think the guardrails, as you said, are really important. So let's meet and come back and I want to talk about a couple other things.
Yeah,
we'll be right back, folks. So one of the things that I want to talk about was I've been doing this transition from Apple to Android, and the difficulty of doing it, how locked you are in their ecosystem. Partly it's because Apple does a really good job of incorporating your photos, your calendar, this or that, your iMessage. I don't like being attached to one company like that. It drives me crazy. And when I'm trying to get off, it's funny how many people use. I mean, they've done an insane job. Because, like, I think there's some enormous percentage of kids today that only use iPhones. You know, and when you try to switch over to Android, it's so much easier to switch from Android to Apple. So many people have Apple. When you switch from Apple to Android, you kind of have to upgrade your whole system. It's such a pain in the ass.
We're way over
But there's so much of what Apple does that I don't like. And one of the big ones is the way they do that Apple Store, where they charge you like 30%. That seems so insane that they can get away with doing that. And I know
I have some opinions about this.
I know you do. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, no, I mean, look.
Fire sale.
The iPhone is obviously one of the most important inventions, probably of all time. You know, Steve Jobs came out in 2007, and I started Facebook in 2004. So he was working on the iPhone while I was getting started with Facebook. So I basically, you know, one of the things that's been interesting in my 20 years of running the company is that I basically, like, the dominant platform out there is smartphones. On the one hand, it's been great for us because we are able to build these tools that everyone can have in their pocket. There's like 4 billion people who use the different apps that we use, and it's like I'm grateful that platform exists. But we can play any role in basically building that, those phones. It was kind of getting lost in while I was, you know, still just trying to make the first website that I was making into a thing. And on the one hand, it's been great because, you know, now pretty much everyone in the world has a phone, and that's a kind of enables pretty amazing things. But on the other hand, like you're saying, they use that platform to put in place a lot of rules that I think feel arbitrary, feel like, you know, they haven't really invented anything great in a while. Like Steve Jobs invented the iPhone, and now they're just kind of sitting on it 20 years later, and you know, actually, I think year over year, I'm not even sure they're selling more iPhones at this point. I think like the sales might actually be declining.
Authorizing hostile launch.
Part is that each generation doesn't actually get that much better, so people are just taking longer to upgrade than they would before. So the number of sales, I think, has generally been flat to So how do they make more money as a company? Well, they do it by basically squeezing people. And like you're saying, like having this 30% tax on developers, by getting you to buy more peripherals and things that plug into it. You know, they build stuff like AirPods, which are cool, but they've just thoroughly hamstrung the ability for anyone else to build something that can connect to the iPhone in the same way. So, I mean, there are a lot of other companies in the world that would be able to build like a very good earphone, but it just, Apple has a specific protocol they built into the iPhone that allows AirPods to basically connect to it, and it's just much more seamless because they've enabled that, but they don't let anyone else use the protocol. If they did, there would probably be much better competitors to AirPods out there. And whenever you push on this, they get super touchy, and they basically wrap their defense of it in, well, if we let other companies plug into our thing, then that would violate people's privacy and security. It's like, no, just do a better job designing the protocol, right? I mean, we have, we basically asked them for the Ray-Ban Meta glasses that we built. Can we basically use the protocol that we use for AirPod and some of these other things to just make it so we can as easily connect? So it's not like a pain in the ass for people who want to use this. And yeah, I think one of the protocols that they've used, that they built, they basically didn't encrypt it, so it's like plain text. And they're like, well, we can't have you plug into it because it would be insecure. It's like, it's insecure because you didn't build any security into it, and then now you're using that as a justification for why only your product can connect in an easy way. It's like, the whole thing is kind of wild. And I'm pretty optimistic that just because they've been so off their game in terms of not really releasing many innovative things, that eventually, I mean, the good news about the tech industry is it's just super dynamic, and things are constantly getting invented, and I think companies, if you just don't do a good job for like 10 years, eventually you're just going to get beat by someone. But I don't know. I mean, at some point I did this like back of the envelope calculation of like all the random rules that Apple puts out. If they didn't apply, like, I think, it's like, and this is just meta, I think we like make twice as much profit or something. And not just us. I mean, it's like all these small companies that like probably can't even exist because of the taxes that they put in place. So yeah, I think it's a big issue. I wish that they would just kind of get back to building good things and not having their ability to compete be connected to just like advantaging their stuff. Because I'm pretty sure what they're going to do is like they're going to take something like this Ray-Ban Meta, category that we've kind of created with Ray-Ban and the company that built that. They're like the really great AI glasses. And I'm pretty sure Apple's just going to like try to build a version of that, but then just like advantage how it connects to the phone. And
well, they did that with their AR goggle thing, but it's not very successful.
No, that one they didn't actually connect into the rest of their ecosystem. But I mean, look, they shipped something for $3,500 that I think is worse than the thing that we shipped for $300 or $400. So, I mean, that clearly was not going to work very well. Now, I mean, look, they're a good technology company. I think their second and third version will probably be better than their first version. But yeah, no, I think the Vision Pro is, I think, one of the bigger swings at doing a new thing that they'd tried in a while. And, I don't want to give them too hard of a time on it because we do a lot of things where the first version isn't that good. You want to kind of judge the third version of it. But, the V1, it definitely did not hit it out of the park.
I heard it's really good for watching movies.
Well, it's the whole thing is it's got a super sharp screen. So if you want to basically have an experience where you're not moving around much in VR, you just want to have the sharpest screen, then for that one use case, I think the Vision Pro is better than Quest, which is our mixed reality headset. But in order to get to that, they had to make all these other trade-offs, right? In order to have a super high resolution screen, they had to put in all this more compute in order to power the high res screen, and then all that compute needed a bigger battery. So now the thing is really heavy. So now it's uncomfortable to wear, and then like because of the screen that they chose, as you move your head, which you would if you're actually interacting, if you're playing games, like the kind of image blurs a bit, and that's kind of annoying. So it's actually worse for things where you're moving around it. But no, if you're gonna sit, if you're like on a flight, and you want to have a $3,500 device that you use to watch videos, Vision Pro is better for that use case.
They're really good at keeping you in their walled garden. That's what they're really good at.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing that they've done with iMessage, where they do this whole blue bubble, green bubble thing, and it basically, I mean, they're like, for kids, it's just sort of like, they embarrass you. Where they're like, if you don't have a blue bubble, you're not cool, and you're like the out crowd, and then they always wrap it in like security. It's like, oh, well, we do this blue bubble because of security. Meanwhile, Google and others have this whole protocol to be able to do encrypted text messages that finally I think Apple was forced to implement it.
RCS.
Yeah. I think it was the Chinese government that basically ended up forcing them to do it, or some other government.
But it's still not encrypted. Even when you're sending RCS text messages, I don't think it's encrypted.
Oh, I thought it was, but maybe
I think it's only encrypted Google to Google phones. I don't think it's encrypted iPhone to Google phones or Google phones to iPhones.
You're worse.
Because I think that was actually, was it the FBI? Someone released that, telling people that if they're talking about sensitive things, they should use encrypted apps, like WhatsApp. See if we can find that. It was something where they were saying that, contrary to popular belief, that RCS texting to iPhone, yes?
GSMA aims to implement end-to-end encryption for RCS messaging.
Can we see it?
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Insta-Kid.
I was trying to read.
Yeah, so Google RCS to
but I don't know if this is
Android phone to Android phone is encrypted with RCS. I think the issue comes with it going from, so like, say Google, Google this, Google RCS texting to iPhones, is it encrypted? RCS texting to iMessage, is it encrypted? I'm pretty sure it's not. I might be wrong. I don't think I am. I'm pretty sure I read that. And the problem was they won't let any other phone use the iMessage protocol. And they had a company that was doing it called Beeper. And they were doing it through some sort of workaround. Yeah, it's not encrypted. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so it's not. So you are getting the ability to send high resolution images, which is great because, you know, like my friend Brian, who used an Android, he'd send me a video and it'd be this tiny little broken down box because, you know, you had to break it down to the lowest resolution.
Yeah, no, I mean, group chats, when you have a bunch of people in iMessage and one person on Android are terrible. I mean, we get a ton of people.
People get mad at you because you.
Well, I use WhatsApp.
So
I use WhatsApp.
You only use that.
I only communicate with a few people over SMS, but it's but basically, I build, you know, a lot of leading messaging services, so I've got to use ours. Most people, I'm either WhatsApp or Instagram Direct or Messenger, but yeah. So I think it's maybe people are less likely to get mad at me for asking them to use WhatsApp because you always make WhatsApp. Yeah. So
when Tucker Carlson was about to interview Vladimir Putin, one of the things that was really disturbing was they contacted him and said that they read his signal messages and they knew that he was going to interview Vladimir Putin, and he was like, "What the fuck?"
Who did?
The government.
The U.S.
Yes, U.S. government. I forget what it was. Was it the CIA? Or was it the FBI?
Wow.
I forget who it was. But he was like, I didn't even know you could do that. Like,
well, there are multiple vulnerabilities and all this stuff. It's unclear if I doubt that what they did was they broke Signal, because that encryption I think is pretty good, as is WhatsApp. I mean, it's basically Signal and WhatsApp use the same encryption. It's an open source, like NSA. Okay, but someone could break into your phone and see everything that's on your phone. The thing that encryption does that's really good is it makes it so that the company that's running the service doesn't see it. So if you're using WhatsApp, basically, when I text you on WhatsApp,
there's no point at which the meta servers see the contents of that message. Unless, like, you know, we took a photo of it or shared that back to meta in some other way. Basically, it cuts out the company completely from it, which is, I think, really important for a bunch of reasons. One is people might not trust the company, but also just security issues, right? Like, let's say someone hacks into Meta, which, you know, we try really hard to make it so they can't, and we haven't had many issues with that over the 20 years of running the company, but in theory, if someone did, then they'd be able to access everyone's messages if it weren't encrypted. But because it's encrypted, there's just nothing there, right? It's like when they can't hack into Meta and then get access to your messages. So now, someone like the NSA or CIA would have to kind of hack into your phone, which, you know, there are probably ways to do that.
Pegasus.
I mean, there are probably a bunch of ways.
Yeah. There's probably ways we don't know of.
Yeah, and then, of course, you know, there's always the ultimate kind of physical part of it, which is if you have access to the computer, you can usually just break in, right? So that's why, you know, if the FBI, you know, arrests you and takes your phone, they're probably going to be able to get in and see what's there.
So WhatsApp is encrypted, but if someone has something like Pegasus, what they do is have access to your phone. So it doesn't matter if anything's encrypted, they can just see it in plain sight.
Yeah, and I mean, this is one of the reasons why we put disappearing messages in, too. Because that way, oh yeah, if someone has compromised your phone and they can see everything that's going on there, then obviously they can see stuff as it comes in. But I kind of, in general, just think we should keep around as little of that stuff as possible. So there's some threads where, you know, it's like there's photos that get shared, you want the photos, but I think for a lot of threads, a lot of people just, you know, wouldn't be, I don't think most people would miss it if most of the contents of their threads just disappeared after 7 days.
Right.
You know, what I find is, I don't use it that much because we have this like corporate policy at Meta that we need to retain all our documents and messages and stuff. But before we had that, I used it as we were developing this, and every once in a while I would miss something and say, wow, I kind of wish I could go back and see that, but it was very rare. I think most communication, it's kind of like, you just have the communication and you're done. So having it be encrypted and disappearing, I think is a pretty good kind of standard of security and privacy.
And you can set that disappearing time on WhatsApp, right? You can make it 1 day if you want.
Yeah, you can do 1 day, you can do 7 days, and you can also set it across all your threads. You can have a default timer, so that way as new threads get created, your default timer just becomes the default for all those threads. So I think that it's a really good feature. But I basically think WhatsApp and Signal are probably the two most secure that are out there on that. And of those two, I think WhatsApp is just used by a lot more people, so I think it's generally, yeah, I wouldn't say this because it's our product, but I do think it's the better product. But I think WhatsApp and Signal are basically, you know, the two most secure ones.
What was your take on that guy getting arrested, the CEO of Telegram?
Oh man,
that's kind of a crazy one, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a little difficult to weigh in on these situations without knowing all the specifics, but one of the government tactics that I've seen that I think is not great is an increasing number of governments when they like have an issue with something that a company is doing, basically just like threaten to throw the executives of that company in prison. And it's like, I think that's just a really weird precedent to set, right? It's like, it's if the, you know, you have all these, so it's like, we're operating in all these different countries, and then like, you have